Hello, BookTube. Well, as you can see, the long Vermont vacation, the adventure that the Bean and I have been on for the last 2 weeks, is now finally over. We are back in Boston. We are back in Hyde Cottage, and it was wonderful. We both enjoyed ourselves so thoroughly that coming back actually felt a little strange, which is always a good sign for a vacation. And as you might imagine, I came back to a lot of mail. So we're going to do a mail haul, a kind of homecoming mail haul, and I am going to cut the video off at a certain point and just go on to part two. I don't think there's any way I'm going to get through all these packages in any kind of a short video. So we'll start out, we'll see how far we go, and then we'll just do a part two. And see what the bookish world has to send me. I am assuming that a great many of these things are going to be February finished copies, but probably lots of other stuff too. So what have we got first here? Okay, this one is this going to be a paperback original? No, this is going to be a hardcover in early May. This is by Will Jawando, and it's called My Seven Black Fathers. I presume that's the author. A young activist memoir of race, family, and the mentors who made him whole. As a boy growing up outside D.C., the author, who went by his Nigerian name Yemi, was shunted from school to school, never quite fitting in. He was a black kid with a divorced white mother. His relationship with his biological father was strained, and his teachers chastised him for being disruptive in class and on the playground. Eventually, he became close to Kalfani, a kid he met on the basketball court with a whole lot of promise. Years after, he got the call telling him that Kalfani was dead, a casualty of street violence. Will looks back on what saved him from a similar fate. So who is the author? Do we have... He's got a gigantic biography for somebody so young. He's an attorney, an activist, a community leader, a councilman from Montgomery County, Maryland. The youngest candidate in Maryland's 8th District congressional race, he received a glowing endorsement from the Congressional Black Caucus. Okay, so a possibility that you're looking at a future president, and this is a memoir of his. So this comes out in early May in a paperback from FSG. All right, so let's move on here. I don't know why I pull at these tabs. They have never worked. They simply don't work. Here, let's just rip it open like you are a ravenous bear. Put the disused tabs down there and see what we have. Okay, Vienna 1800, Republic of Free Spirit. Peter Newman, translated by Shelley Fish. This is a finished copy of something that we've seen. Rather lovely finished copy. This comes out on February 15th, in a week. Let's see here. In this book, the German poet and philosophy professor Peter Newman delivers a work of literary nonfiction and group biography about a set of friends in their circle that helped to birth German Romanticism. The author focuses story on the Schlegel brothers, Friedrich and August Wilhelm, their wives Dorothea and Caroline, the philosopher Schelling, and the poet Novalis, all of whom lived in a small university town around the turn of the 19th century in the wake of both political and philosophical revolutions. Okay, group biographies can be fun if they're done well. When did this originally come out? Did any of you read this in the original? I'd love to know. This came out originally in 2018. Okay, so this is out in a week. A February finished copy. That's what I'm assuming that a lot of these things are going to be. We're never going to get through this. If I stem line about every single one, we'll never get through this. So let's just keep going. This one has a bit of weight to it. Could be another finished copy. Clearly, I've been gone for twice as long as I thought I was going to be. So my so-called work bookcase has to be totally rearranged. Don't know that I'll do that today. I'm a little bit behind on a few things, but it has to be totally redone, and this will help a lot. Coming back to 40 books will help a lot. Okay, great. I think we've seen this already. I think I talked about this just a bit. This is also a February release, yes? Yes, next week. This is The Thousand Eyes by A.K. Larkwood. Again, a very pretty finished copy. This is a sequel, let's see here, to The Unspoken Name, which was, I think, this author's debut. 2 years after defying the wizard Belthandros Sethani and escaping into the great unknown, authors and these unpronounceable names. Capital C Sorwe. Sorswe? No idea. No idea. And Shuthmili have made a new life for themselves, hunting for secrets among the ruins of an ancient snake empire. I would certainly, in the course, I remember these two from the first book. I end up giving them just fake names because there's no way. What does that sound? Is something dripping? Well, we'll find out together. I have already read. I read the advanced copy of this, and I like this series. And I thought the second book was strong, but you absolutely need to read the first book first. So find the first book, The Unspoken Name, if you're interested in a new and rather snazzily written epic fantasy. It's snazzily written, and it does very self-consciously tick 21st century Twitter identitarian boxes, but it's done well despite that. If you can stand that, I decided pretty early on in the first book that I would not just hurl it across the room because it was well executed, even though that sort of thing drives me crazy. I'm always on the lookout. I very much like it when epic fantasy is well done. So I'll take it even at great annoyance. Okay, here's another finished copy. This one for March. This is The Great Passion by James Runcie. We saw this already. I don't think this is all going to be finished copies, right? Our first one was not. But I need them. I need lots of them. I need to revamp that entire top shelf has to be revamped. We're at the beginning of February, and there's still a pile there for January stuff, so that all has to change. Well, we saw this already, but let's see again here. The Great Passion is a new novel from James Runcie, the best-selling author of the Grantchester series, the basis for the show, which has been turned into a TV show starring James Norton. A moving meditation on grief and music told through the story of Bach's composing of the St. Matthew Passion. The Great Passion is a carefully crafted, emotionally rich tale of loss, belonging, and faith, and the transformative impact Bach and his music had on the life of a young boy. So the Great Passion here is the St. Matthew Passion, and this doesn't come out until mid-March. So I don't really need to think about it, and that's good because I've got a lot to think about. Although when we're talking about this many books, I mean a pile this tall and a pile the next one that we're doing, I'm kind of hoping it's a little bit grandiose of a hope, but I'm kind of hoping that in one of these two piles, I find not only a book that I'm rejoicing to have in finished copy, there'll be a lot of finished copies here, but also a keeper, an actual personal keeper. I'm kind of hoping for that. As weird as that is, that's not likely to happen. But let's see here. You have a punch sheet. Yes, there you go. You're going to behave yourself. Good. This comes out also in February. This is also a February finished copy. I can't remember if we saw this already. This is a novel by Stephanie Roble called This Might Hurt. The author's debut was Darling Rose Gold. Any of you read that? It was one of 2020's most well-received debut novels. Despite publishing during the initial days of the COVID-19 pandemic, it was an instant bestseller, received rave reviews, and was nominated for multiple awards, including the Edgar Award for Best First Novel. Darling Rose Gold explored the ultimate dysfunctional mother-daughter relationship through the lens of Munchausen by proxy, but put the reveal about the psychological disorder right up front. Now, the author brings her masterful prose to explore the bond between sisters through the issue of another thrilling. We're gonna let it go. We're gonna let it go. You can write a pub sheet in a hurry, and lots of us are overworked, so we're just gonna let that go. I'm not gonna try and figure out what the writer was trying to say. Instead, let's go to the author, an international best-selling author of Darling. So, Darling Rose Gold did really well. Did any of you read Darling Rose Gold? It did really well. The author grew up in Chicago, but has been living in the UK for the past 3 years with her husband and dog, Moose Barkwinkle. Just give your dog a name, okay? Don't give your dog a personality statement of your own. Give your dog a name. That's all. Just a name. Just give them a name. She has an MFA from Emerson College. Probably sold books to this person. and has had short fiction published in Bellevue Literary Review. What is Bellevue Literary Review? They never published me. Before turning to fiction, she worked as a creative copywriter at various advertising agencies. Okay, well, I don't know what a creative copywriter is. Most of the ones I've met were miserable, homicidal maniacs. But I'm glad to have the thing, and it's right in the focal point here. I have the mother of all killer surprise deadlines in the next few days. It is going to govern my life for the next few days. So this is not, I don't think, a case. Usually when I've got a mail haul like this, I say that it is also a TBR. I'm not sure how much whimsy reading I can do in the next few days. Really not. Oh, great. Okay, fantastic. This is something that has an interesting story to it. I saw this on another channel. I don't remember whose channel it was. Was it Working Man Reads? Or Coffee, Cats, and King? I don't remember which channel I saw it off the top of my head, but I've been out of the BookTube loop. On that channel, if I remember, I'll leave a link to it down below, the host of that channel held up a book, a werewolf novel. Said it was really good, and I immediately wanted to know how I would get it, and the author reached out to me. And this is the book. Let's see it, and maybe it'll intrigue you too. This is called The Forsaken Boy, and the novel is by Troy Tradeup. And I emailed back and forth with the author over a very vexing question. What have we got here? People have tormented Brandon his entire life. Maybe it's his shabby clothes. Maybe it's the bruises on his arms or the haunted look in his eyes. Or maybe it's some essential, unexplainable difference deep inside. Not quite white, not quite Indian, and soon now not quite human. Brandon is about to walk a dark country road and discover a hunger he never imagined and find out he likes it. Run. That's all you can do now. This is a modern werewolf novel. It sounds like it has a brain behind it. Although, I might invoke the ghost of John Adams with that unexplainable. The jury is out. Should it be inexplicable? I am always up for a well-done werewolf novel because I've read so many that weren't. So now I'm extra tempted. Oh, God. I can't do any whimsy reading. I cannot, especially tonight. The Forsaken Boy might have to wait. What is actually the pub date on this thing? I don't think I ever got to that. This is, okay, there's a version of it anyway that's 2021. So a recent thing. If you have a yen for werewolf novels, you might want to look this up on Amazon or Goodreads, see if it strikes your fancy the way it did mine. Okay, then we have looks like a romance. This is coming out in May. Thank God, I don't have to think about it. This is by Helena Hunting, and it's called Starry-Eyed Love. With one of these cartoon covers that seem to be all the rage in genre-crossing romance novels. Yeah, this comes out in early May. Having just broken up with her boyfriend, London Spark... okay, not Daffodil Destiny. London Spark is not in the mood to be hit on, especially not when she's out celebrating her single status with her sisters. So when a very attractive man pays for their drinks and then slips her his number, she passes it right back to him with a thanks but no thanks. As the business administrator for their family's event hotel, the Spark House, London has more important things to worry about, like bringing in new clientele. Bet you can guess where this is going in the next paragraph, I'll bet. As luck would have it, a multi-million-dollar company calls a few months later asking for a meeting to discuss a potential partnership, and London is eager to prove to her sisters and herself that she can land this deal. Just when she thinks she has nailed her presentation, the company's CEO, Jackson Holt, walks in and inserts himself into the meeting. Not only that, but he also happens to be the same guy she turned down at a bar a few months ago. All right, so we never fault romances for not being unpredictable. Romances thrive on being predictable. It's all about execution. In fact, it throws the emphasis back on execution. Gladly read it, but not for a while. Not for a while. Boy, some of these things are a little bit worse for wear. Some of these things have probably been out in the weather while I've been cavorting in Vermont. Oh, great. Okay. Some of you are going to recognize this from over a year ago when it showed up on this channel for the first time. Now it's out in paperback, and I wanted to make sure you knew that in case The hardcover was, maybe you don't like hardcovers or maybe it was too expensive. This comes out in a week, just a few days, February 8th, in paperback. This is Lindsay Chervinsky's book, The Cabinet, a very good book about the political beginnings of the United States of America. On November 26, 1791, George Washington convened his department secretaries, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, Henry Knox, yay, Boston, represent, and Edmund Randolph, for the first cabinet meeting. Why did he wait 2.5 years into his presidency to call his cabinet? Because the U.S. Constitution did not create or provide for such a body. Washington was on his own. Faced with diplomatic crises, domestic insurrections, and constitutional challenges, and finding congressional help lacking, Washington decided he needed a group of advisors he could turn to. He modeled his new cabinet on the councils of war he had led as commander of the Continental Army. In the early days, the cabinet served as the president's pleasure. Washington tinkered with its structure throughout his administration, at times calling regular meetings, at other times preferring written advice and individual discussions. And this is a study of Washington's cabinet, of the thing that he basically created. And it's really, really good. I'm very happy to have the paperback. Wow, it looks like the author in February is doing events, including a couple that aren't virtual, a couple that are in person, one in Alexandria and one in Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's encouraging. Well, I hope that keeps up. And this, of course, comes with a whole slate of blurbs because the hardcover's been out already. But I'm glad I have a paperback so I get to show you because this is coming out in paperback, and it's actually a Washington connected book that's worth your time, which is not always a given. Let's see here. I'm keeping one eye on the clock because there's no way that I'm going to get all of these things done in one video. No way. Oh, okay, very good. Do you have a little pub sheety poo? No? No, all right. Well, this comes out in early May, so I don't have to think about it. But it is another mythology retelling. This is by Jennifer Saint, who did Ariadne, and this is Elektra. These are all the rage now, these myth retellings. And they can walk the line. They fall on either side of, men stink. If that's the sum and essence of your book, then I don't care how much research you've done into mythological trends. And if it isn't, then I do. What do we got here? A spellbinding reimagining of the story of Elektra, one of the Greek mythology's most infamous heroines, from the author of the beloved international bestseller Ariadne. When Clytemnestra marries Agamemnon, oh, it's all downhill from there. She ignores the insidious whispers about his family line, the House of Atreus. But when, on the eve of the Trojan War, Agamemnon betrays Clytemnestra in the most unimaginable way, she must confront the curse that has long ravaged their family. I'm wondering if that betrayal in a most unimaginable way is slaughtering their daughter like a sacrificial heifer. Could be. Could be. In Troy, Princess Cassandra has the gift of prophecy but carries a curse of her own. No one will ever believe what she sees. Though she is shown what will happen to her beloved city when Agamemnon and his army arrive, she is powerless to stop the tragedy from unfolding. Elektra, Clytemnestra and Agamemnon's youngest daughter, wants only for her beloved father to return home from the war, but can she escape her family's bloody history, or is her destiny bound by violence too? I go into all of these myth retellings with a wide open mind. Some of them have bitterly disappointed me, but I go into them. Some of them have also pleased me enormously, so I go into them with a wide open mind. It could be that Elektra will be my new favorite, but I will not be finding that out this weekend. Not at all. It's going to take a lot to get me to deviate from routine here, because this weekend is going to be monstrous. Just monstrous. What have we got here? Why are you fighting me so much? Is this in bright yellow? Oh, gross. Gross. It's an invoice. Let's get that out of there. Oh, great. Okay, great. This is Reaction Books. They've done, they do a series of books on animals. Cute little books on animals, some of which are very, very good. They're up to, oh God, I don't even know how many of these animal books there are. No, I don't think all of them get released in America, but there must be dozens of them by now. And this is by Bethan Roberts, and it is a book on nightingales. There's a little creature singing its heart out. Let's see here. The nightingale has a unique place in cultural history. The most prized of songbirds and the most mythologized, it has inspired more poems than any other creature. Bethan Roberts juxtaposes the bird of poetry, music, myth, and lore with the living bird of wood and scrubland, unpicking the entangled relationship between them. Okay, great. Well, that's what these little books do. That's what they do with a nightingale or a gorilla or a whale or a cat or a goat or a pig. No matter what your totem animal is, you should find the volume that they do. You're probably going to love it. Uh, okay, this next thing is as light as a feather. What is this? Is it a slim volume of poetry? It'd be a little bit much to come home to, wouldn't it? What is this? Light as a feather. A tiny little thing. Okay. Wow. All right, so this is 80 pages long. This is Rose Royal, a love story by Nicholas Mathieu. Rose Royal. Wee wisp of a thing. Comes out next week in, I guess, this form? I don't... Well, no, this is going to be a hardcover. It's going to be a hardcover. I don't have a sheet on it, but let's see here. Nearing 50, with a divorce and a string of other failed relationships behind her, Rose has given up on the idea of love, if not sex, though that has always come with risks. Determined not to let another man hurt her, she even ordered a .38 caliber handgun after an argument with her latest boyfriend almost turned violent. Now she carries it everywhere, just in case. As if on autopilot, Rose spends her days at work and then at the Royal, a familiar haunt where she knocks back one drink after another, sometimes with her best friend Marie-Jean. And then a sudden accident brings Luke into the bar, and Rose decides to give love one last chance. Okay, just what I want to hear, that she's constantly packing a gun while getting drunk. That's just great. Is this translated? Yes, this originally came out in French in 2019. And the English translation is by Sam Taylor, mentioned in the fine print on the front page, but not on the book outside. Let's keep going. Let's press on. We are up to 22 minutes. We go a while longer, I think, before we have to stop. Let's see here. Okay, this next one is another finished copy. This is also February. I knew it. I'm getting a slew of February finished copies. I couldn't be happier about that. So let's clean this thing up just a bit. This is by an author that a number of you like a lot better than I do. I respect that. Maybe this will change things. This is Pure Color by Sheila Heti. What do we have here? Blurb after blurb after blurb after blurb. Do you have anything about the book? Anything at all about the book? No. Don't have anything at all in the pub sheet about the book. But in the book, there'll be something about the book. This is a new novel about art, love, death, and time. How we are just living in the first draft of creation. Here we are, just living in the first draft of creation, which was made by some great artist who is now getting ready to tear it apart. In this first draft, a woman named Mira leaves home for school. There she meets Annie, whose tremendous power opens Mira's chest like a portal. To what? She doesn't know. When Mira is older, her beloved father dies, and she enters the strange and dizzying dimension that true loss opens up. This book tells the story of a life from beginning to end. It is a galaxy of a novel, explosive, celestially bright, huge, and streaked with beauty. It is a contemporary Bible, an atlas of feeling, and a shape-shifting epic. The author is a philosopher of modern experience, and she has reimagined what a book can hold. For those of you in the cheap seat, that is the dictionary definition of overselling a book. There is no possible way that this book, which is what? All of 200 pages soaking wet with rocks in his pockets? Yes, there's no way this book can live up to those claims, but could still be good. Certainly, if it reimagines the entire breadth of human existence, going back to the first proto-human 250 million years ago, probably it's good. Oh, book publicists, I love them so. All right, this next one is an advance copy. Okay, this comes out in May. This is Unsettled Land, From Revolution to Republic, The Struggle for Texas by Sam Haynes. Let's see here, a book about Texas. Steeped in lore and enshrined in myth, the Texas Revolution has been cast as one of the epic events of the American West, a saga filled with the thrilling exploits of larger-than-life figures like Sam Houston, David Crockett, and William Barrett Travis. As the story goes, a handful of heroic Anglo-Americans waged war in the fall of 1835 to free Texas from the repressive Mexican rule, with the conflict ending on a triumphant note, for the United States at least, at the Battle of San Jacinto in 1836. Despite its endurance, this epic narrative vastly oversimplifies what was in fact a complex and brutal struggle between multiple actors with shifting alliances. And in this book, the authors a fundamental reappraisal of these events and their place in the history of the United States and Mexico. Central to this reappraisal is the fact that at the time of the insurrection, Texas was one of the most ethically diverse regions in North America, a place of convergence for whites, Mexicans, Native Americans, and those of African descent. The result of this convergence was a period of violent conflict, and for many of its peoples, a basic struggle for survival. Okay. I never know. I never know whether I'm bumping against some Twitter speak, some form of Twitter speak, which I've learned over the last 2 years to hate with such a virulence that it actually derails my thought processes. I can't read a book if it's indulging in Twitter speak, and I don't know. It was triggered by that. Those of African descent, is that new Twitter speak this week for slaves or ex-slaves? Are we not allowed to call? You're not allowed to use that word anymore on pain of cancellation. I don't know. I don't know whether or not that's the case, but maybe not. Probably was just an innocent turn of phrase by the publicist who wrote this. So this comes out in early May. I'm intrigued, to say the least. I have lived in Texas, so I'm intrigued. I wouldn't want to be in Texas right now, since they are once again being battered by cold and snow. That once again they are not prepared for, because once again they are governed by some of the most corrupt, venal, and stupid politicians in all of America. Heart goes out to the Lone Star State. So the next one is a finished copy. Let's hoping that it's February. Yes, February 1st. This is by Carl Phillips, and this is the finished copy of his new collection of poetry, Then the War. Selected poems from 2007 to 2020. Carl Phillips has aptly described his work as an ongoing quest. Then the war is the next step in that meaningful process of self-discovery for both the poet and his reader. I don't want the author to be self-discovering if I'm going to... Well, I'm not paying for this book, but I don't want the author to be self-discovering and also charging you $35 for a pop at watching him do it. I know it's just phraseology, but I just hate that. The reason why this is in the bookstore, the reason why you're being asked to pay a not insignificant chunk of money for it, should be precisely because the author has figured out what he's doing. Not because you want to watch him figure out what he's doing and maybe get it wrong. Anyway, the new poems, written in a time of rising racial conflict in the United States, with its attending violence and uncertainty, find Phillips entering deeper into the landscape he has made his own, a forest of intimacy, queerness, and the moral inquiry, where the farther one goes, the more difficult it is to remember why or where we started. Okay, well, this comes out on February 1st, so it's out already. It is a February finished release. Don't know if I have an advance copy for it, but I'll give a look. And we're gonna go into a little bit past the 30-minute mark here, and hope to get this first batch of books done. Because I'd really rather not make 10 videos on these things. Let's see what this next one is. It's got an invoice. We don't want that. What is this? Oh, great. Fantastic. I was looking forward to this. This comes out on March 1st. So this, I'm intrigued, but I can't do it until a week has gone by or so. But you're going to love this. You're going to find it interesting, I bet. I certainly did. I can't wait to read it. This is by David George Haskell, and it's called Sounds Wild and Broken: Sonic Marvels, Evolution's Creativity, and the Crisis of Sensory Extinction. And there you have a bird, you have frogs peeping on a branch, and you have humpback whale and calf. So you know what the book is about. It's about the wild soundscape. We live on a planet alive with song, music, and speech. David Haskell explores how these wonders came to be. In rainforests shimmering with insect sounds and swamps pulsing with frog calls, we learn about evolution's creative powers. That's a bad phrase. Evolution isn't creating anything. Creation is an act of will. But I understand what's being meant here. Just take it that way. Don't start thinking about creationism. Okay. From birds in the Rocky Mountains and on the streets of Paris, we discover how animals learn their songs and adapt to new environments. Below the waves, we hear our kinship to beings as different as snapping shrimp, toadfish, and whales. In the startlingly divergent sonic vibes of the animals of different continents, we experience the legacies of plate tectonics, the deep history of animal groups and their movements around the world, and the quirks of aesthetic evolution. Fantastic. So this comes out on March the 1st. I am going to beg and plead to write about it. I would very much like to write about it. So let's push on here and hope that we can make some progress. I'm not going to do a library tour today. It'll just be mail for today to catch up. I couldn't let these things sit. I want to know what's in these packages, even though it's a distraction from what I have to do. Fantastic. All right. Well, this next one is going to need precious little in the way of introduction. This is William Martin's new book, the author of Back Bay and Cape Cod. This is his new book, December 41, with the White House in Crosshairs, World War II thriller. I don't have a pub sheet in the envelope there, but I'll read you the back. I think you will be intrigued. Let's see here. William Martin is the author of 12 New York Times best-selling novels, an award-winning PBS documentary on the life of George Washington, and a cult classic horror film, too. Anybody care to name that cult classic horror film? Oh, no, this is his biography. Okay, what do we have about the book? Anything about the book? Oh, no. You don't have anything about the book. Okay. Maybe something? Okay. In this book, Martin takes us on the ultimate manhunt, a desperate chase from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. in the first few weeks of U.S.'s entry into the Second World War. And Catherine Coulter says it's a remarkable story that will keep you reading into the night. I am not going to test that tonight. This comes out in June. I'm not going to test that hypnotic reading tonight because it'd be fatal to me if it actually did keep me reading late into the night. But I have the utmost faith, to put it mildly, I have the utmost faith in the author. He will pull it off. And I like the premise. He has a couple of recurring characters. Doesn't sound like they'll be in this book. It just sounds like a fresh standalone, which is always a good idea, periodically, even for a really well-established novel to do. Okay, this next one is another June release. A huge load off my mind. This is Imogen, Nevada. No, it's not. I'm sorry. I was thrown off by the absolutely requisite, absolutely hideous American cover. This is, I imagine, Imogen Binney is the author and Nevada is the title. I am being invited to think otherwise in this ridiculous, ugly, children's graffiti of a novel cover. But I'm assuming, is that right? Imogen Binney, yes, is the name of the author. Okay. This was originally published in 2013 by Topside Press. Interesting. It was a finalist for the Lambda Literary Award for transgender fiction, and has since become one of the most treasured cult novels of our time. Okay, all right. We can't wait to get this groundbreaking book back into print and introduce Imogen Binney and her iconic narrator to a much wider audience. This issue comes complete with a new afterword by the author, Binney's first new piece of published writing in years, and her first time ever reflecting on the original publication. Fascinating. So this is a reprint. Did any of you read Nevada when it first came out? So this reprint is slated for early June. Fantastic. I said it many times before. I'll say it again. I love my job. I never know what's coming. Never. So let's push on here. We've just got a few more to go. We'll go to 40-minute mark maybe, and then if I can keep the diatribes down to a minimum, we'll be all right. What is this next one? Okay, this comes out in April. This is Kelly Armstrong, and this is A Rip Through Time. And there's a modern-day woman and a man in a top hat. I wonder if Rip is a play on Jack the Ripper. Let's find out. I'm thrilled to bring you a captivating series debut. Okay, it's first book in a series by Kelly Armstrong, where a modern-day homicide detective finds herself in Victorian Scotland in an unfamiliar body. So it's not just time travel. It's she's in a different body with a killer on the loose. Outlander meets the Alienist in the first book in this utterly compelling series, mixing history, mystery, and fantasy with thrilling results. So let's see. In May of 2019, homicide detective Mallory is in Edinburgh to be with her dying grandmother. While out for a jog one evening, Mallory hears a woman in distress. She's drawn to an alley where she is attacked and loses consciousness. And in May of 1869, housemaid Catriona Thompson has been enjoying a half day off, only to be discovered that night in a lane where she'd been strangled and left for dead, exactly 150 years before Mallory was strangled in the same spot. When Mallory wakes up in Catriona's body in 1869, she must put aside her shock and adjust quickly to the reality. Life as a housemaid to an undertaker in Victorian Scotland. She soon discovers that her boss, Dr. Gray, also moonlights as a medical examiner and has just taken on an intriguing case, the strangulation of a young man similar to the attack on herself. Her only hope is that catching the murderer can lead her back to her modern life before it's too late. Okay, I'm sold. Absolutely sold. This comes out in hardcover in late May, the end of May. So a while yet. I don't have to think about it. It's tempting me. A lot of these things are tempting me. But we're just gonna heroically push on here. We can do this. We've only got 2 more books to do. I feel certain that we can do this. This next one is an advance copy. It is by Kristen Green, and it's called The Devil's Half Acre, the untold story of how one woman liberated the South's most notorious slave jail. Let's see here. April 12th is when this comes out. While the statue of Robert E. Lee has been removed from Monument Avenue in Richmond, part of the city's dark history in the slave trade is unacknowledged, literally buried just a few miles away. Once a prominent neighborhood fixture, a hub for domestic slave trade and its brutal horrors, Lumpkin's Jail was until recently marked only by a couple of signs in a field between parking lots. This is exactly the way to tell a story you don't want to be known, writes journalist and New York Times bestselling author Kristen Green in this book. Through the life of Mary Lumpkin, an enslaved woman torn from her family and forced to bear children of her enslaver, Green relates the often unrecoverable lives of enslaved black women and their families by centering Mary's struggles to secure freedom, education, and futures for herself and her children. Okay, I'm still stumbling here because I'm wondering, has Twitter declared in the last 12 hours that we can't use the word slave? The word slave as a noun is not permissible anymore. Enslaved person, enslaved woman. Are we not allowed to use the word slave anymore? So depressing to even think about these things, and yet they are real. So Kristen Green is a reporter and was the author of the New York Times best-selling book Something Must Be Done About Prince Edward County. She has worked as a writer for 2 decades for newspapers including the Boston Globe, the San Diego Union Tribune, and the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Okay, great. She holds a master's in public administration from Harvard Kennedy School and lives with her husband and 2 daughters in Richmond. Okay, so this is going to be a slice of, I love these kinds of things. This is going to be a slice of history about which I know nothing, or very little, and that's fantastic. Sounds like the author had to literally dig it up in a field. All the better. Okay, and then we've got to this last one here. I'm going to let this video go just a little long as I rip apart this package into little pieces to get at the book inside, which is a tiny little thing. What have we got here? Oh, God, it's another invoice. I don't think so. Okay, this is got a hideous American cover to deal with here. Sonorous Desert, What Deep Listening Taught Early Christian Monks and What It Can Teach Us by Kim Haynes Eitzen. Sonorous Desert. Ooh. No sheet at all here. Let's see here. For the hermits and communal monks of antiquity, the desert was a place to flee the cacophony of ordinary life in order to hear and contemplate the voice of God. But these monks discovered something surprising in their harsh desert surroundings. Far from empty and silent, the desert is richly reverberant. Absolutely true. This book shares the stories and sayings of these ancient spiritual seekers, tracing how the ambient sounds of wind, thunder, water, and animals shaped the emergence and development of early Christian monasticism. Fantastic. So who is this author? Kim Haynes Eitzen is the Hendricks Memorial Professor of Early Christianity and Early Judaism at Cornell University. Uh, she's the author of The Gendered Palimpsest, The Guardians of Letters, and she appeared in National Geographic's Story of God with Morgan Freeman. Okay, great. Well, I want to read this. I also want to send it to a certain reader in Ireland. So that is great. Fantastic. I don't have a date. June. This comes out in June. All right, so we got this done in 40 minutes. I'm not going to do a Steve Pyramid because there are 30 books here. But I have another mail haul to do. This is just part one. We're going to try and do part two in the same amount of time or less. So I'll wrap this up and I'll see you over there in part two. Thank you, BookTube.